the past 4 years, I've been doing expert witness work, and I currently am undefeated, which I don't know how long that's going to live. It's been 44 cases have gone my way in a row. So I'm like kind of shocked just that that whole thing worked that way. But
What's that like? Is it because of documentation? Is
yes,
it, I mean, a lot of it is it's he who has the most documentation usually wins, is what I've found.
exactly. And that's one area that I excelled at was finding a way to document a ton of information and just put it into something that's digestible.
Welcome back to another episode of Kingdom Heirs, where faith meets business, inspiring the kingdom-minded entrepreneur. I'm your host, James Matalone, and today we've got the privilege of interviewing with David Revay with Revay Coating Consultants. David is going to talk to us and share with us about the niche industry of preventative maintenance on things like cruise ships, yachts, even the Apple Dome in California, Apple's headquarters. David's going to have some insights that he wants to share with us on what it's like to work with the ultra wealthy, these big corporations, what type of tips he's been able to glean to apply to his own business. He's been in business for 12 years and is an expert in his industry. So let's buckle up. Let's get into the interview. And don't forget to comment down below and let us know what you liked. Thanks, guys. Let's get started.
Hey, David, welcome to the show. We're so glad you're here. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So David, I talked a little bit in the intro about your background. You've been 12 years in this industry.
Yes, sir.
So why this? How did you get started? In tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah. So years and years ago, it actually does involve my wife. Uh, I had no clue what career path I was going to go on. I was ambitious and eager to do something and tried a few different things, mechanic, tried, working in the offices. I couldn't just, none of it was for me.
Right.
And it wasn't until I was 21 or 22, a friend of my dad asked him, "What's your eldest son up to? I need an inspector on a project I can't get anybody to go on." So I was like, "What's this?" And he was like, "Well, it's the outside of a 56-story skyscraper."
Yeah, of course. I just can't find anybody.
Right. I was like, "Well, I have no career path at all, no pathway. Like,
I got nothing to live for.
might as well." So I I was afraid of heights too. And the first like week they take you up to the top and mess with you up there to see if you can, hang or not.
See if they can
And
break you.
I fell in love with it. It was the craziest like sensory I don't know. It messed with me set like my sensors somehow. And yeah, it was just the most unique thing I've ever experienced. And being up that high, seeing the whole city and it being so quiet. You couldn't hear
Yeah.
anything from up there.
Just the wind, I would imagine.
Yep. So yeah, I started on a skyscraper, then went to bridges, then I went to water towers, and then went to wastewater treatment plants in Virginia, then did some wastewater treatment plants in California and Georgia, and then ended up in Florida on a super yacht project.
Where did you start? Where was that first skyscraper you were at?
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Pittsburgh. Is that where you're born and raised? All right.
So
So
no water real like there's the biggest boats in Pittsburgh are 40, 50 feet.
yeah, of course.
Moved to Florida and now the boats are several hundred feet. Pretty big difference.
It's a pretty big difference. Well, and you're living now in the Sunshine State versus the coal state, right?
Sure. Yeah, and I wouldn't trade it for
Yeah,
anything.
I love it. Well, I'm from upstate New York, so we weren't too far from you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, down in Texas, loving Texas. The two free states, I would say Texas and Florida.
For
I know
sure.
there's a few others, but those are the two biggest.
For sure.
So you go from that to a yacht, and once you get to the yacht, and you guys are doing you're doing inspections for preventative maintenance. Is that correct?
That and new build construction. So anytime a new asset, I call it an asset because it can be a large, like mega structure, or it can be a ship of any kind. Whenever they're first constructed, you're basically putting the trust of whoever's painting it to do everything perfectly right. And
Correct. Yeah.
my experience, I've never seen it happen like to perfection anyway. A lot of them are aiming for it, and I give credit where credit's due. I certainly have my list of like preferred paint contractors that, it's just a smooth process every time I deal with them.
Yeah.
There's the ones that, make life very difficult. And it's
Well,
just
it's very process driven, step driven, right?
we're actually doing what we do is involving like how thick the paint is even down to microns,
Yeah.
uh, really, really small measurements. And with regards to the paint, like it has to be a certain temperature, humidity, the dew point has to be at a certain point. All of these like factors have to line up for the paint job to go smoothly. If any one of them are out of place, you could completely screw up the job and have to redo it.
Got it. Makes sense.
With a lot of the yacht stuff, the guys, they don't make paint or they don't make money unless they paint if they only paint the boat once, they make money. If they're painting it two, three times, they're
They
breaking even
lose it.
or losing
Yeah.
money.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a major deal. So were you contracting those first few years? And then
So,
at what point did you transition into doing your own thing?
so I was actually I guess you would call me an inspector slash junior consultant under my mentor, who was my dad's friend back in the day. Um, Unfortunately, he passed away in 21. So I've been kind of flying solo since. But I mean, he really helped anchor me with just everything in the industry because I didn't know anybody that had done anything like this. So I
Right.
had nothing to compare it to really. So I've been running the very first yacht project I was put on, the owner was putting a crazy amount. Like it was only a 115-foot boat, but he was putting like 50 million plus into it. And he
Oh my goodness.
could have had a 300-foot boat for that amount of money. But it's really unfortunate. The captain slash project manager basically embezzled a ton of money from the owner with a few other contractors.
Sure.
There were like 70 or 80 some contractors involved. And
Man.
the owner of the boat, 6 months into me being on the project, he pulled me aside and said, if you want to start your own company, I'll give you the contract because we love what you're doing here. The industry needs it and doesn't have it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I was like, but I need to, I wouldn't even be in Florida doing this right now if it wasn't for Kirk, the guy that got me
Yeah.
into it. So let me talk to him first and, I'll get back to you. So it was like the opportunity of a lifetime. And I wanted to just immediately say yes, but again, I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for Kirk. So
Smart.
talked to
Good.
him. Yeah, he actually he gave up the project for me and kind of gave me my blessing on, I know you can do this, and let me start my own with that project. So it was a $250,000 1 year contract. But to get started, that was, plenty.
Yeah,
So
that's huge.
yeah,
David, you mentioned something that I rings very true for myself, and I know many other people listening will say, you need one person to believe in you.
absolutely.
You really need a mentor that will selflessly teach you, and we need to be the ones that are like just sponging it up. And the biggest thing I think what a lot of men do is their first break comes like this guy coming and saying, hey, come, you should start your own thing. And most people, like, they cut and run quickly from their mentor and they leave him in the dust, and there's no respect there, there's no loyalty there. And that's really how good families are established, that's how good companies are established, is respect and loyalty back to those who shepherded us, who cared for us, who mentored us. That's huge. I mean, that shows huge character right there. And to get his blessing, obviously you didn't need it, but to have it is a huge deal.
Yeah, that meant the world to me. Just because like I really wouldn't be like he took a big risk on me whenever I was 21, 22, no
Yeah,
experience,
right.
afraid of heights, and he's gonna trust me on this massive project. And that's kind of how our relationship developed was he threw me on, he took the risk, but threw me on to something and I excelled at it and he just kept throwing things at me until,
I love it.
until I was able to spread my own wings, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. No, that's cool. So, how many at this point? Just to kind of give us perspective, I was looking through your bio and some of the things that you guys have done. How'd you wind up working at the Apple Dome?
I still don't exactly know how I
That
landed.
that that's a huge facility.
So
Can't believe how big that thing is.
what's even crazier is so I got hired to defend the contractor that built Apple's headquarters. Apple was suing them,
Sure.
and everyone was stumped because it was on several of their buildings. They have an awesome carbon fiber. It's all carbon fiber, and then it's painted with yacht paint, metallic finish with a clear coat. It looks like an iPhone.
Yeah, yeah.
Several like roofs of several buildings within their Apple campus. Everything was fine year one, two, and then all of a sudden, year three, there's no clear coat left. And it's like, what happened here? Like, it looks like somebody physically did something.
Yeah.
Oh, no, no, nothing. I spent a few weeks doing research and found out that there were wildfires in the air
Mm,
and all that ash and soot just laid on top of the paint. No one cleaned it. It just mixed with dew every morning, so it turned into a caustic paste, and it just
wow.
ate away at the paint job. To repair that is going to be because the buildings have no steel supports at all. It's all glass, so you can't put much weight on the roof.
Are they solar panels all around the top of the roof?
No, on the main campus, yes.
Got it. Yeah. I'm just looking at a picture of it. We'll
Yeah,
put a picture up for people to see what we're talking about. This thing's extensive. Yeah.
really, it was so cool to be there in person. But one of the cool things was that, and I was a little prideful with this, but I'm a small fish, in a big ocean right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, the engineering firm that Apple hired, SGH or SPG, they're a big firm. I think they do 100+ million a year in revenue, and it was me against them,
Hmm.
and I won. So it was just one of those like David and Goliath type stories where
Did
just
they tell you why you won it? Why they preferred you over the other guys?
so it's not that I won, like I won, I got the case. I mean, I won in court against
Ah,
against
okay.
uh
Okay, it was still the sorting out. Yeah.
so yeah, I ended up defending, who was the rightful party. It would have been a shame if Apple would have been able to convince, a judge that it was their fault for whatever reason. And that company now has to pay to fix, someone else's mistake. Just isn't fair.
Right. Or mistakes from a wildfire,
Right.
right? I mean, that's really, and to your point, I mean, it's a great point about, when there's the elements are acting up and you got fires and floods and hailstorms, everything else going on, to evaluate how that would interact with our own buildings.
Oh, well, it's crazy because even when it comes to painting boats, they're the most complicated to paint because the shiny paint that makes them look really nice, we can't put that paint below water.
So you've got to hold the water line.
Where do you mark the water line on that's constantly changing? So you have to mark it like at a very specific point. And if for some reason the top side does get submerged in water, within a few weeks to a few months, you could have the paint popping off.
Is that what they put a lot of wax? Is there wax added on top or no?
That was gel coat is what is often used for fiberglass boats. When they come out of the mold, the fiberglass is actually like cured, or the gel coat is cured from the fiber. One of the two. I always get them backwards, but uh, there's like a thermal process. They do use vacuum bags where
Right.
they'll vacuum seal everything and pull the resin through. Um,
Wow.
Gel coat is a whole nother animal. It's very similar to paint, but gel coat never fully cures. So it's kind of like an in-between. It's it looks
Remains pliable.
right, right. So it has its, limitations.
Wow.
But yeah,
So
with paint stuff, it's a lot more complicated than anybody really realizes.
no, you're right. It's chemistry.
Yeah.
It's all chemistry. You're working with it. What are some of the biggest projects you've worked on more recently?
So Apple was a big one back in 21. Um, the biggest boat that I've gotten to do recently was Oppo. It's now Lady Georgia, I think. They changed names too. So
Right. Is it based on owners?
yes. So the owner gets to
Right.
name it, and then as they sell the boat, new owners get to take over and rename it, and it's a whole big, ceremony.
I'm looking at some of these photos of the projects you've been on. These things are like I'm looking at a 5-story, one, two, three, four, 5-story boat, another 5-story boat, 3-story boat. These
Yeah,
things are, I say boat. I mean, it's not a boat. This
right.
thing's a cruise ship.
Yeah,
Uh,
Oppo was $400 million. It's 377 feet long. I think it has a crew of 60 or 70 people that are
wow.
just on board living there to make sure that the boat runs year round.
Now, who owns these boats? Who are these people? Are these corporations? Are they individuals?
Both. Both. I've
Yeah.
done years back I did Delta's corporate yacht, Delta
Hmm.
Airlines.
Yeah.
Then trying to think of some of a lot of the owners will stay, they're pretty good at concealing ownership sometimes.
Who they are. Yeah.
Uh, those people, they'll usually use like uh, yacht management companies, and then attorneys and stuff. So you never even get to speak with them. You're dealing with all their people. But
They're handlers.
yeah, and that's like Motor Yacht Venus, Apple, Steve Jobs' family yacht, actually. I've worked on Venus a few times, not just the outside, but their drinking water. All of the yachts have mini wastewater treatment plants and
Right.
water purification systems on board. So all of the water tanks get inspected by someone like me, and those are really tight to get into. It's just a
Right.
wild, in the morning I could be climbing into a black water tank, and
Oh,
then
wow.
in the afternoon I'm up on the main, on a 200 million. So there's a lot of in between.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's pretty crazy. The what's it like working with the companies? I mean, how do they find you? How do they find you? What's it like dealing with the contracts? I could imagine these contracts are this thick. What's that like for you?
So it's definitely interesting, and I would have assumed the same, but because there are so few people that do this line of work, no one
Okay,
knows the terminology. It's me
there you
teaching
go.
the entire industry basically. There is a handful of people that know their stuff, but there's a lot more that just know enough to be dangerous. And that's one thing that I've kind of learned in the industry, and it's something that's a challenge in the industry, is just to it's like the Wild West. There's no regulations, there's no, rules or anything. Uh, on the land-based side of things like water, wastewater treatment plants, bridges, it's all very structured in how the inspection process is, what testing is done, all of that. The yacht industry is just it's the Wild West. Anything that goes, anything goes pretty much goes. So it's just it's a lot to manage.
You were just describing what it's like to win these contracts, and though it's a niche business, so it's a
Right.
little bit it's relatively easy. Is that what you're saying?
It's not, I wouldn't say easy because I have to give the client enough information where they understand what I'm going to do, but not too much where I overwhelm them because I'm passionate about the paint stuff. Like I'm a
Right.
big big nerd when it comes to all of it.
Yeah,
And
right.
anytime I get the chance to talk about the paint stuff, I'm happy to do so. But keeping in mind, a lot of these guys, made their billions from something else other than paint, and they're
Correct. That's why they're hiring the expert.
exactly.
No, that makes sense. So do you actually do application as well? Do you contract application now, or is it strictly the process?
Strictly inspection and consulting. So I
Yeah,
get
so that's good, man.
I get brought in more when there are major problems, like lawsuits. The past 4 years, I've been doing expert witness work, and I currently am undefeated, which I don't know how long that's going to live.
Yeah, well, we get it. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep. Some roll your way, some don't.
it's been 44 cases have gone my way in a row. So I'm like kind of shocked just that whole thing worked that way. But
What's that like? Is it because of documentation? Is
yes,
it, I mean, a lot of it is it's he who has the most documentation usually wins, is what I've found.
exactly. And that's one area that I excelled at, was finding a way to document a ton of information and just put it into something that's digestible, an easy 3-page report. Even though I've been there, the entire year, I need to condense everything down to something that's, digestible for the owner. And that depends on, their personality and everything.
Well, that's a good point. So, I mean, I found that those of us that find ourselves in a sticky situation with clients and contractors and so forth, text messages not so great. It's hard to snip and the feed. I mean, you can email documentation is great with photos. Copying everybody on the team, that way everybody knows that there's, hey, well, how come you missed this? Your email address is on there, you just didn't respond, right
Right.
there. What type of things have you seen in your experience that would be helpful for other business owners, different industries, but same?
I can honestly say the most slept on, like, easiest feature is the camera. Like
Mm,
how taking a few pictures can save you like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in certain situations. Um,
right.
just simply taking pictures to show progress, even, if you in the photos, you're able to lay out a timeline and show, this is you're in the just in the photos alone, you're able to identify where things went wrong with the
Yeah,
sketch.
and they're
And
time stamped.
exactly, that's the whole thing. For that very first project of mine, that let me start my own company, this is really unfortunate, but this was the silver lining. Because of all the corruption from the captain and the other contractors, after 5 years of the owner paying everybody to build this, amazing boat, after 5 years, the job was terminated because the owner had $100 million stolen from him.
Wow.
And just super disgusting, like, behavior. The guy, money was no object. He wanted this to be the best boat, for its size. And I don't know, I really loved that, about him. Just like he was doing it to bring boat building to Florida, like bring it back to Florida, because everything in the US has pretty much been shipped overseas.
Got
Everything.
it.
Everything from production to, us making our own oil and stuff. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
For and you're talking about these yachts. These yachts are not built here.
no, no, a lot of them are built in Europe. There are a few manufacturers that still build boats in the US. Berger Boat Company's a big one, but they're up in like I think they're up near Michigan or something. Um,
Mm,
but yeah, a lot of the big boat builders are in Europe. Italy, Italy has a lot, and
yeah,
the Italians are fun though. They don't like doing business with anybody but Italians,
that's it.
no matter how
You
much you
know,
know your stuff.
yeah, you got to be able to speak their language
Yeah.
without the American accent.
Exactly.
Oh,
I've been nestling up to this company for 5 years now, 6 years, and they still, like, they'll give me some work here and there, but I'm like, I know I can help you guys so much more, and they won't.
yeah. Well, Megan and I were just in Italy 2 weeks ago, we were just there visiting our family's hometown in Sicily.
Oh, nice.
And so that was awesome. We even found relatives that are still living there after a couple hundred years.
Right. That's
And
awesome.
so it's very it was awesome. That was a great experience, man. That was now I know why they call it the old world.
Right.
I mean, for 1,000 years, these towns, these communities are still there, and people are still living in the same buildings, if not. That they just keep renovating them and patching them up. So I don't know. It was a cool experience.
Right.
The some of the biggest challenges of your industry, that you've experienced. What are some of those biggest challenges?
Honestly, the biggest challenge is learning what you don't know, like
Yeah,
identifying what you don't know before it actually costs you. I think that's the biggest challenge because I don't have anybody to compare to or to like I have some companies that I can like sort of compare to, but even like my competitors, they do either, they'll do yachts or this company will do bridges.
yeah,
None of them are doing everything. Like all coatings, whether it's for a yacht, for a tank, they're all the same materials. They just have different like factors involved.
sure. And how they're applied,
Right, right.
right? What kind of advice do you have for contractors that are in the business, that are in the industry, people that you've had to go up against, and people you've had to defend, and people you've had to testify against in court? Like what kind of things have you seen that if they just did X, Y, Z, they wouldn't get in trouble,
If
or
the
or find themselves in trouble would be a good
Right.
way to say it.
So one of the big ones is every paint contractor should have every single one of their painters, the guys that do prep work, all of them should be reviewing the product data sheets that they're whatever
Mm-hmm.
products they're applying, they're 1 to 3 pages each. And it's
Yeah,
like
not big deal, but to read it is huge.
it's vital because I would say 90% of the screw ups that I get called, in as an expert on were avoidable with cheap effort in various areas could have prevented, numerous issues from happening. So
That's a
that's
good
probably the biggest one.
Yeah, that's a good point. We built a building a couple of years ago, and we had it was a masonry block building, and it needed to be sealed. And so we went through, we got with the contractor, we got with the manufacturer of the product we were going to use. We found out exactly which base coat we needed to apply and what top coat we needed to apply, and hired the contractor. He knew that, and he performed it. The issue that we found out later was that we went through it and we realized that the exterior, the final finish, started cracking all over the way, like spider cracking. And we're like, what the heck is going on? So we came back and we got with the distributor of the paint product, and we said, hey, they brought all the reps in. They said, look, James, we've worked with you a long time. If there's an issue with the paint product, we'll take care of it. But what you have here is they applied way too much. They put on too much product. You can see it; it's drooping, and then it cracked, fissure cracked all over the place. So your problem actually is not the product, it was the application. And I went to the contractor about it, and he got heated, got upset. And I'm like, look, 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 look. The big thing is just we added too much paint. He's like, well, you don't like this? Let me paint it again. I said, no, stop. It's like 5 coats of paint. You don't need 5 coats of paint on this thing.
Yep.
So to your point, and look, we didn't go to court, nothing like that. I said, look, it's like I'm gonna live peaceably with people as much as I can, you know. But to your point, it's just following the specs. Say, look, here's the steps. Don't overdo it, and don't underdo it.
All of those data sheets will tell you the minimum and maximum thicknesses that you can apply that product to.
Right.
Now, most regular people don't have like wet film gauges for paint.
Sure.
I think I have one around here. But yeah, most people don't have that, but that's like the simplest way to check. But again, most people see, oh, well, I just need to paint it. And it's like more paint does not equal better.
It's good.
More paint can fail.
Yeah, that's really what and to think about it, your final coat protection, whether it's paint, whether it's sealer, whether it's a finish of some sort, that is your first line of defense to protect the whole structure, whatever it is.
Yep.
That's what
Yep.
takes the beating. That's what's out in the elements. And if we do fail at that from the get-go and or don't reapply when it says we should reapply, try to stretch it as far as possible, you're really putting your asset at huge risk
Absolutely.
of taking a major hit.
For sure.
Yeah. So what would you say as far as some of the great tips, some tips that could be applied towards your industry?
Um, Reading the data sheets, hiring someone, if you don't know anything about paint, to hire someone that does. And whether that's someone like me or even like a well-known paint contractor, get somebody on your team that knows what they're talking about. It'll just
Yeah.
make it a lot easier.
And to the point you made, the data sheets, the manufacturing companies, it's all chemistry.
Yep.
It's all chemistry. So to that point, and at that point, then once you get past the chemistry, then it goes to the actual application. These companies will come out. These companies they love to talk about their product and how to do it.
Yep.
So to get a rep out is actually easier than we think.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. Um, the Just curious now. So, you married?
Yes.
You have children?
No, no, no children.
All right. So your background, and so you're from Pittsburgh. You've been doing this about 12 years now. Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
Well, I do have a stepson who's 21, and earlier this year we started getting him trained to do what I'm doing, but he had to have some surgery and we had some business slow down, so we, parted ways for now. But the plan is to basically teach him everything that I know, try to be a mentor to him like Kirk was for me, and just to grow it is the plan because it's been 6.5 years, almost 7 years, um, of me doing this alone. I've
Yeah.
attempted to hire, I've attempted to train. It's it's such a niche thing that I don't even know where to begin on finding another person that can just pop in and do it.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's been the big challenge.
Yeah. Like anything, I mean, the way you were brought into the industry is how you've got to bring in
Right.
anyone that's going to be able to help you. It's going to be the same thing.
Yeah,
And like anything, it's always character.
for sure.
You're working with a certain type of character that can demonstrate that they want it, they understand it, and in the end, it's about representing your client well. I mean, and that's really what you're doing is you're representing your client in their best interest. You're putting their best interest first,
Absolutely.
which is really what all businesses are, right?
Exactly.
All industry. If we're really here to provide a really good service, really good product to our end user, which is the client, the customer, that intention is that we're here to serve them, right? And as we're serving them, they agree to pay us. It's the basics of business, right? So, and when we provide a really good service, they're excited to pay us to write that check. Man, they feel good about it, right?
Right.
And so, one of the things that I always find in my faith is, I don't like to separate the two. I don't like to take my faith element and take business and separate the two. And I know most people do that because they just don't think. I think it's the way they're raised. The way culture has raised us with the political correctness and so forth. Take God out of schools. Well, surely take God out of the workplace. He doesn't belong there. But that's not true. I mean, none of that is true. It's who we are. It's our identity, and not to be ashamed of that in our practice and say, man, this David's a man of integrity and good character. I wonder where that comes from, right? And you think, well, it just comes because I'm a good person. Well, that's not true either because we're not good people. It's ascribing to a moral code and a code of integrity through Christ, in my opinion. So, what's it been like for you as you've walked in your faith and you've developed your faith and deepened your faith? How have you seen your faith impact your business? Have you seen any correlations there?
Yes, honestly. I mean, I truly believe that God knows exactly how to like speak to us all and will put us on the paths that we all like basically need. And I think we all have things to work on like during while we're on that path. and while you know, accomplish those things, things get a little easier each time. Um, I will say that I think God humbled me this past year. Uh, I had a really weird incident happen, and not joking, like our church has been calling me Job lately.
Mm,
It's been like that. Like I
yeah,
had
yeah,
everything and it's been stripped away. And I'm
yeah.
still, you know, still here, still showing up on Sundays, still, you know, still doing exactly what I was doing before.
That's
So,
good. That's good. So there's times that, thank you for sharing that. I mean, there's times that each one of us will have troubles. The Bible says that we will. Jesus said it. It says you will have troubles, but don't allow those troubles to come in and just snuff you out.
right,
And so when we have trials, when we experience trials and tribulations and troubles, you can rejoice because the enemy is trying to sift you. But Jesus says, I've overcome. I've overcome the world. And if we're hidden in Christ, we as well will overcome these circumstances, these situations. So it's kind of like how Job persevered through the trials, the tribulations, losing his family. Um, and think about it, man, life is but a vapor. Life is but a breath. None of us, tomorrow's not guaranteed. An hour from now is not guaranteed to
right.
us. And so we're always supposed to live at peace with our God, live at peace with man, with our neighbor, right? Everybody else around us. And in the end, if we solely make money the focus of what we're doing, like if we elevate money to the highest point in our life, that is exactly what will take us down, right? But if we put loving God, walking humbly before Him, having a deeply rooted faith in Jesus Christ, that if that becomes our elevation and serving others through the work that we do, if we serve others, right, like you consult, you serve people and their needs. Well, at that point, now we're loving God and we're loving people, right? So in that, now that becomes what elevates, and that's what we then ascribe to. Well, resources, wealth, and resources all come. They all come, but we just can't put our emphasis on that. And I think a lot of people that do really, really well. I've worked for some really, really wealthy people. I know you have as well. And you see that they got all this stuff, but when you talk to them, they seem pretty empty. Now, there's people that are rooted in Christ that are very wealthy. That man, they got a good, healthy balance, right? And it seems like they're not limited of struggles and challenges. The more wealth you amass, and the more things that you amass, and the more junk we add to our life, usually the more burdens we have.
Right.
Because then you got to spend a lot of time doing preventive maintenance to keep it from rotting. Because everything's going to rot at some point. It's all going to rot,
Exactly.
But if we keep that focus on Him, everything else seems small because He's so big.
Right.
And I think that's the healthy perspective that we all need to have in business, no matter if we're selling $1 widgets, or if we're selling $1 million, closing $1 million deals. It doesn't matter what level you're at. I think if we keep that perspective, life just seems to go a little bit smoother for us.
I agree.
Um, Even when the challenges come, even when the rain falls, the Bible says that the rain falls on the just and the unjust. Rain falls on us both, but I like to say that we have an umbrella at times. We have a covering at times, and that
Right.
the Holy Spirit power is for us to get us through those storms. So you walking out your journey right now and being vulnerable like this, and sharing your insights is a big deal, because you could take your testimonies, the things that you're tested on, and they become a testimony, right? So the things that you're being tested on, you say, look, but God is bigger than all of this. I'm just going to keep walking through it. And that's what all the people around you start looking at. And they're like, dude, he's not laying down. He's just going to keep on trucking forward. That's a big deal, David. That's a big deal.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, look, man, I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. How can people connect with you?
I actually also started a YouTube channel recently.
Good. Yeah, let's hear about it.
Um,
What are you doing with it?
so it's going to be, I'm trying a few different things with it since it's new. I'm going to kind of see what sticks, but
Yeah.
show off some of the cool stuff that I get to see like pretty much every other day, every day.
Absolutely, dude.
I mean, I just posted one because I was, working on yachts or I'm sorry, 2 days ago. I was doing spark testing. It involves high voltage. You hook up a ground, like you ground to the sewer line, the concrete sewer line, and then I either go into the manhole or I lower the thing down. And this wand, it's basically like a wire brush. You drag it across the surface of the painted surface, and if there's a single breach or a void in the paint film, there will be a little bolt of electricity will shoot off the wand and into the hole. So you're able to mark if there's any breaches in the lining system. And that's like for the sewers because of how corrosive the gases are.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So literally on Monday, I can be on a dock looking at a beautiful boat. And then Tuesday, I'm climbing into a sewer.
Dude, dirty jobs.
Exactly.
And you're getting paid awesome money to do it. That guy did excellent with his Dirty Jobs TV show. What was his name? I can't remember his name right now.
Mike
Lowe. Yeah, that's it. And so I mean that's a great point. People love seeing stuff like the you need to get yourself some POV glasses.
Right.
When you're going down in those glasses and some Ray-Bans and people be like, but they'll keep watching because they're so grossed out. They want to keep watching, see what happens.
Yep. Yeah.
Dude, that's great, man. The power of internet right now with YouTube and the socials, Instagram and so forth. I mean, that's what Kingdom Airs is doing. Like you said, just putting up content, good content that people can learn from and people could just get grossed out from and or be inspired from.
Right.
Either way, people are going to go to it and they'll kind of gravitate towards it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, David V. Vincent Revay, the super yacht paint expert, I believe is how I'm registered on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, all David Revay. And then what was I going to say? Lost my train of thought, but
we're going to put those up for you as well. We'll include those in. That way guys can connect and right in our intro. The people can be able to click on it in the bio and so forth. So we'll make sure people can connect with you.
Appreciate it.
Well, that sounds good, man. Well, David, thank you again for coming online in the middle of your work day. And if you need anything in the future, feel free to connect back with me.
Will do. Likewise.
All right, man. Thank you.
Hey guys, if you liked what you heard, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. If you want to see more content like this, hit the comments down below and let us know what you think. If you have some suggestions of what you'd like us to talk about next and type of industries that you'd like us to interview, please, again, reach out and connect with us. We love you guys, and we'll see you next time.